Welcome to Three Limbs number 55. I am Denny. Obviously, I'm the host, right? Well, it doesn't have to be obvious, but I'm the one talking right now. So, yeah, I'm the host. And if you were listening from before, you know that I host this thing. So, until further changes, right? But today we'll be talking about the Volkswagen Bus or the ID Buzz and why it failed. And being honest with everybody here, the listener that I have, which is myself probably. But the subjects a lot of times come pre-planned, like planned from a long time ago. Some of the times it comes because of an idea or a subject that I see from a conversation with somebody or in passing or news that I see. And this is one of them. I saw a conversation when the news came up that Volkswagen was going to discontinue the bus. I saw a lot of talk about it, like why, like speculation, but I would like to really do an analysis of why this is happening and why this car didn't didn't succeed, right? Like we've talked about before in this podcast about the the other successes that Volkswagen has had, like the Rabbit or Golf, right? Or the Beetle, and how those vehicles became exactly what Volkswagen was aimed to be, and it was the people's car. But this one, the Volkswagen Buzz, it was it could have been that again for Volkswagen, but it just didn't. And why that didn't happen, and to start the story of the ID Buzz, and I've briefly touched on the subject before on a different episode, but this was in episode 19, by the way. If you want to hear my initial thoughts of the ID Buzz, it's episode 19. Also, we've touched on the the GTI, which is episode number 3, and the story of the Beetle, which is episode number 8. But if you wanna, or if you're interested in those, you can go back and listen to those. But this time, again, I'll be analyzing the the VW bus. We'll be doing a 4P analysis, and we'll be doing a Porter's 5 forces analysis to complement anything that we might miss one from the other. So I don't tend to do just one. But okay, so what's the current picture of the ID bus? So the ID bus started in 2017, right? The concept was, or made its debut in 2017, and it was released in 2025 in the US. I think in Europe had a few years that had been going around already. It had been adopted in Europe by it is basically like kind of like a work van that it's as marketed in Europe. Like it doesn't have to be just a passenger car. It's also used as a business vehicle to transport cargo. But after 1 year here in the US, Volkswagen decided to pull the plug. They only sold 5,000 units total the whole year, 5,000 units. And these numbers are even more staggering after, or surprisingly, or shocking, whatever word you want to use. But these numbers are even more dramatic later when I explain how they compare with the competition. But it's definitely a product failure. That's something that we can say. And it's not because the product was bad. The product was actually good. But there were very, very significant factors and the timing that made the Buzz not succeed. And it was okay. So if you know the Volkswagen Buzz, there's a cult out there for this car, and it's a car from the 1960s. It was the VW microbus. And now as a modern interpretation, electric interpretation, fully electric, by the way, if you're not familiar with the car. But the US dealerships had the car in the late 2024 as a 2025 model, obviously, but it was a 7 year delay from when they teased that the car was going to come out to market till 2024. It's 7 years of people waiting. Some people even forgot about it. But the sales data in Q1 of 2025, the car was just deliver or they deliver only 1,900 units. And in contrast, the Kia EV9 reached 20,000 units in the same quarter. Let's give it, let's round up for Volkswagen's sake and not make it look so horrible. But it was like, let's say 2,000 units delivered 2025 Q1 compared to 20,000 delivered by Kia EV9. And by September 2025, the sales had barely reached 5,000 units for the Volkswagen van. And then, by 2026, they said that they were not going to make it. And they said, and quote unquote, current EV market conditions. That's the reason that they're giving. But if we analyze the whole picture, we'll find out exactly what happened here. So if we start with the 4P analysis and we analyze the product, right? So I briefly touched on it already, but the car basically, to my eyes, and I'm biased because I'm a Volkswagen fanboy, but it was built obviously as the old school van. It had a lot of cargo space, The seats were great. The spacing inside was great. It was comfortable inside, and it was high enough that you could see, like, I would dare to say almost better than an SUV. But this is not what people shopping this segment are looking for. Yeah, that is nice to have, definitely nice to have, but it's not exactly what the people are looking for. And another strength that the car had was cargo capacity. The headroom that you have in the front, it's a lot. It's like an old school van, and it's great. The EV9, well, if we compare measurements, okay, 42.4 inches of headroom, sorry, from the Volkswagen van compared to 39.6 inches from the EV9. It's a few inches, but still something, right? The design, it is, to me, is retro. It is very different. If you see it on the road, obviously you're gonna pay attention because nothing looks like it on the road, which is very, very appealing. Um, what were the failures or we said strengths, so what are the weaknesses? The ratio, which was a 234-mile range, it's listed as a fatal flaw, but kind of like within reason. And it's not because the range is bad. It is bad compared to the other cars in the segment. Yes, it's not horrible compared to other cars. It will be technically kind of like having a V8 van, right? Which I don't think anybody really wants. Actually, it's kind of like a little worse because if we compare to the 234-mile range of the ID Buzz with the Dodge Durango SRT Hellcat, that that SUV can give you 295 at the lower limit of miles, which is not. I mean, it's not efficient, right? Because the V8 is a you haul ass on that thing compared to like the 234-mile of the Volkswagen van. I mean, it's never mind. I changed my mind. It's bad, right? It would be like having a V8 with a tiny gas tank. So yeah, in that respect, it is bad. And adding to that, the infrastructure in the U.S. is not the best. Maybe the West Coast might have an advantage, but if you take it to the East Coast or the middle of the country, you're not gonna have the same infrastructure to charge it everywhere. So that's a disadvantage of the car. Another one is the horsepower. This ID Buzz deliver 282 to 335 horsepower with 0 to 60 miles per hour at 7 to 8 seconds, which I don't know if that's relevant in this category, but compared to the EV9, which has 379 horsepower. So from the higher end of 335 from the ID bus to 379 from the Kia EV9, it's quite a bit. And the 5-second acceleration from the EV9 compared to the 7 to 8 seconds of the ID Buzz, and the towing capacity, which is 3,500 pounds for the Buzz, and the EV9 has 5,000 pounds. So there, disadvantages all around. But one thing that I found and I thought it was very interesting is that the the buzz was given to the VW's commercial vehicle division as a task, right? So they were tasked to develop this car compared to any other division, like passenger division or any other division that Volkswagen might have. And this decision, at least for the U.S. market, has been proven to be bad. Uh, the engineers spent decades building diesel-powered cargo vans, not electric passenger vans. And when the passenger car division was asked if they could help, they declined. And they said because they had resource constraints, and the commercial team had to basically figure it out by themselves. And that resulted in the 7-year development delay, rush engineering, and basically there was one specific recall. It says here embarrassing product recalls. I only know of one, and which is from May 2025, and it's about seatbelt compliance. So the third row of the van had enough space for 3 passengers, but it only had 2 seatbelts. Kind of stupid thing is this? But instead of redesigning the third row, the dealers basically retrofitted unpadded trim to not allow a third person to sit there, to avoid having to install the third seatbelt there, which is dumb. Like, what the heck? Is they destroy the core value proposition, which is the spacious interior of the car, which also adds to the differentiation of the car. But they're basically destroying it by not taking advantage of that space. But yeah, that's one of them. And there were multiple stop sale orders through 2025, and this damaged consumer confidence, obviously. But if we move to the next one, which is pricing, right? We talk about product, now we talk about pricing, second P. And the pricing was awful, And at the beginning, I thought it was greed from dealerships. At the same time, we have to remember that dealerships don't make a lot of money, and the company Volkswagen technically kind of like messed them up. I'm not gonna say that. I'm trying to keep this PG-13, right? So I'm not gonna say the F word, but yeah, they messed up their own dealership network, and the pricing structure was the base model was basically, let's say, $62,000 US dollars, and the top trim was around $75,000. And I don't think anybody would initially go for the base model. One of the reasons being the color. If you go for the base model, it was either black or white, and it's not like the usual two-tone of the van. At the bottom it was either yellow or red, like, and the top was white, and it looked cool, it looked pretty retro. But if you chose the base model, it was either black or white, which later, I'm not going to talk too much about this one, but later the dealerships were actually wrapping those to actually sell them better, which I don't know, man. it was so bad, the planning for this car. It had so much potential, but it was so bad. Uh, the dealer discounts after the fact were up to $25,000 off the MSRP. So it was like 40% markdown of the original price, which tells you, right? It tells you that nobody was buying them. The market was rejecting the pricing. This is bad. But why was it priced like this? Why? And it's because the ID Buzz was produced exclusively in Hanover, Germany. And this is where they have the commercial vehicle plant, and the labors are approximately at $3,300 per vehicle compared to $1,300 in the U.S. plants. So Volkswagen has a plant in Chattanooga, Tennessee, where they could have built this car, but because it's different divisions, they just didn't do it, and they didn't transfer it after the tariffs hit. But which obviously I'm going to touch on. I'm transitioning to that right now. But the disadvantage was manageable pre-tariff conditions, but in March 2025, when the tariffs hit, and the president uh, and the administration imposed 25% tariffs on all imported vehicles, the cost just destroyed Volkswagen. It was, the math wasn't mathing, right? Like it became impossible. VW faced around $7,000 to $10,000 disadvantage per vehicle when accounting for the labor cost. Um, so it just went from bad to worse, one thing after the next. So the company had two choices. I think actually three choices: either absorb the losses per unit, raise the prices further, or transfer the vehicle to the US, which a lot of companies either promise or kind of like decided to do, or they're already doing, right? Ford has, I think, manufacturing here in the US. Uh, Toyota has manufacturing in the US. For example, the Toyota Sienna that we purchased instead of this Volkswagen van, which was my first choice, it was built in Indiana, right? So that's where the Toyota builds the some of their cars. But Volkswagen, they couldn't absorb massive losses, right? Because they're already at the bottom of the pecking order of the brands in this segment. They could raise the prices further, sure. Okay, then if nobody's buying it, then nobody, even less people are gonna buy it. Not even look at it, right? The price is so prohibitive already. But so they didn't do neither of the three choices that they had, which it's sad. It's sad to see Volkswagen go down like this. Um, so technically, the price to value collapsed, and McKinsey shows that the American consumer is willing to pay only around $7,000 to $10,000 premium for an EV over a comparable car or internal combustion engine vehicle. So if you put an electric car on one side and an ICE car on the other one, the consumers are only willing to pay at most 10K more than the gas car for an EV. 10K more for an EV than a gas car. But yeah, this ID Buzz pricing was silly, because let's say you can have a, I don't know, a Toyota Sienna or a Honda, let's say Honda Odyssey for like brand new top trim, like 50K, right? Let's say that without doing any research here, 50K. But the ID Buzz would have to be 60K for a top trim, but it was $15,000 more. At least that's before taxes. So 60K for the bottom trim, right, of the ID Buzz for 234 miles and 282 horsepower. You're making the customer pay more for less. It doesn't make sense. Kia EV, $65,000, average for 304 miles of range. Just that, it's like 60 miles more than the Volkswagen, and 379 horsepower, which is 100 horsepower more, and with superior tech. What the heck? Then the Tesla Model Y, same thing, right? 55K for 330 miles, which is even more than the Kia EV9, right? And the Kia EV9 is making a dent on Tesla's market share. And 384 horsepower. It's even more horsepower than the EV9 at less price. And the Ionic 9, which is 70K, right? Close to the Volkswagen, for 330 miles of range, which is the same as the Tesla Model Y. And it's probably interior is way better than a Tesla. So that's where you differentiate the product. Interior, exterior is, to me, to my eyes, better than the Tesla. Same range. So you kind of like positioning Hyundai as a luxury brand now, which is, it's good. But Volkswagen had none of that. So it was basically on the death zone of value. And within months of the car launching, again, dealers were slashing prices 40%. What does that tell you, right? And then add to that the credit, the EV credit collapsed, right? The administration cut it off, which was something that was the customers were leveraging to buy EVs. Now it's gone. So one after the other. Next P, place. Number 3, place. So the manufacturing location was a liability. So Hanover versus Chattanooga decision was obviously bad. Hit him pretty hard. I mean, this is hard to tell, right? Hindsight 2020, but again, maybe having different sources would have been a smarter decision by Volkswagen in this case. Dealer network dysfunction. This is a very important one. The dealerships in the U.S. for Volkswagen, they had a few weaknesses because, or relatively to competitors, right? So, Volkswagen dealers averaged around 30 units per month compared to Kia, which is 81 units per month, Honda 98 per month, Subaru 86, Mazda 62, and so on. So this disadvantage means Volkswagen dealers, they don't make enough money to invest in facilities, training, staff retention. This creates a vicious cycle of weak market presence all around. So VW dealerships are weak just because of sales, right? So VW's brand is not positioned as it should. It's not the people's car anymore. Why? But we're talking about it right now, right? So let's just relax. Allocation strategy failure. This is a one that affected the dealerships, right? So beyond the background of the dealerships not having good presence in the market, the ID buzz was kind of like allocated kind of like a Rolex to the dealerships. So instead of having high volume dealers, which could create a market momentum, VW limited each dealer to 1 or 2 units, basing on allocations of the ID4 sales performance. Bad strategy. The scarcity strategy backfired. The dealers couldn't build customer relationships, or they couldn't sell things quickly. Customers faced artificial unavailability, scarcity, whatever you want to call it, but there was no meaningful demand by the customers, and VW didn't see any meaningful interest from the customer. So the geography mattered. The inventory built in Germany faced shipping delays, port congestions, port congestions, not poor congestions, and dealer frustration with allocation transparency. The last one, last P, promotion, 4P, promotion. This initially was good, right? The creative agency that created the marketing for the bus was good. They had taglines like "Miss the bus, us too." and so on, right? But the some of the failures were like they had insufficient budget related relative to the market size, and it became like a 7 year production, so they had to keep the spirit of the customer alive for like 7 years. I don't know. I don't think Volkswagen paid enough to the marketing company to keep the momentum of 7 years going. The message market mismatch, that's another one. So the product was targeted for nostalgia driven customers. So people like baby boomers and Gen Xers, right? They were the ones that understood the 60s and the 70s microbus history. But this type of customer, are price sensitive. One of the obvious reasons, right? Like baby boomers, they're the retiring generation, so a lot of them are going to start living on retirement money, so they're not going to be spending stupid amount of money on a bus that's overpriced, right? And they're not so much of testers of new technology or early adopters of this technology. So the EV early adopters are millennials, Gen Z, tech forward kind of generations. But some of them, they don't connect with retro positioning. Some of them, they don't remember the microbus, and they also care about the performance specs, which this car didn't have. So the promotional message what kind of missed both, like it went in between both of them. But we can add to that the post Dieselgate reputation of Volkswagen. I don't know if that's still a thing, but we can say some consumers might remember that. And from my point of view, the electric cars that Volkswagen has been putting out, they have not been kind of like flagship cars. They've been like very bland, which is sad to see. Instead of having more e-golfs around, we just have like ID4s and stuff like that, like very generic looking SUVs or small SUVs, nothing really that connects with what Volkswagen or why Volkswagen has been brought up to light or why the brand has been recognized as a good brand. There was also weak dealer sales support, which we already touched on, limited to 1 or 2 units. Um, Insufficient training, right? That's also something that we already touched on. But there's a lot of competition within the segment also, which we already touched. Now we're gonna move to the Porter's Five Forces. The threat of the new entrants, it's moderate to high. Like yes, you need to acquire quite a big amount of money to invest in a new car company, but you have uh brands like Rivian, Scout that are coming into the industry with just electric offerings, which is becoming more and more common. We also have Lucid, which launched not too long ago, and the Chinese EV markets, which I hear they're killing it. Obviously, we don't get them here in the U.S., which is unfortunate, but yeah, in other parts of the world, they are very very present. Bargaining power of suppliers, it's moderate, right? Like everybody uses some of the same suppliers, but at the same time, we have the tariffs here in the U.S., which make it really hard for suppliers to apply some of this leverage. It's already expensive to bring all this material in the US to manufacture new vehicles. Bargaining power of buyers, which is the third power, and this is very high. There's so many options for consumers that that's what killed this Volkswagen Buzz. If it would have been one of the first EVs in the market, maybe it would have been different. Maybe people would have adopted easier, faster, or it would have been more interest for it. But unfortunately, Volkswagen took a long time to bring it to market, and the pricing was wrong. Plus the other reasons that we listed above or before. For power, threat of substitutes, it's very very high. We have the Kia EV9, the Hyundai Ioniq 9, Tesla Model Y, which we listed as some of the of the electric substitutes that you can find there, right? But if if we target this specific power directly of what a substitute would be to an EV car in this situation, electric vehicle. Sorry, but a substitute could be something the like what we got, right? Like it was the Toyota Sienna. It's not an electric car; it's a hybrid. That's a substitute. We went for a substitute. There's enough substitutes out there if you're not convinced with the EV offerings. So you don't need to settle for one thing. There's plenty of options out there. The Honda Odyssey, it's also hybrid. There's reliability there. Honda is very well known, lower cost than the Sienna actually, and you don't have range anxiety because you get plenty of miles out of these hybrid cars. Some people say, yeah, they're the worst of both worlds, but if you don't have charging at home or if you live in an apartment, these are technically better options because you don't have to rely on your landlord to install anything for you to charge that car because you might not have access at work either, right? So everybody's situation is different. So substitutes, there's plenty. Finally, competitive rivalry, very, very high. There's the fifth power. Uh, just to recap, right? Competitive rivalry, which I'm about to address. Then threat of substitutes, threat of, or sorry, buyer buyer power or power of buyers. Sorry, and power of suppliers. And the first one that I talked about was threat of new entrants. So those are the five. But again, going back to competitive rivalry, I've been mentioning these models all the time. EV9, Ionic 9, Tesla Model Y. Those are killers and those are the the top of the segment. And it's hard to compete with those, right? They're already very, very ingrained in the market. They have quite a following. There's a lot of people that love Kias, how they look, how they operate. Hyundai is sister brand to Kia, which they technically use the same tech. So if you don't have a Kia, you can always opt for a Hyundai. You cannot go wrong. Tesla, I know it's lost some market share because of stuff that has happened. I'm not gonna get political here, but stuff that has happened politically, they have lost some market, and but they still have a strong presence here, at least in California. And unfortunately, the ID bus, which makes me sad to say, it kind of flopped. No, it flopped really hard. It didn't kind of flop. It flopped. It really, really flopped. So this is what we have. The analysis for the ID bus. The facts, right? The numbers are there. We can see them. But it's unfortunate that the Volkswagen has reached this level. And I don't say it in a positive way. It's in a negative way. I was hoping for the ID bus. And I think I said it on the previous episode that I was hoping for this vehicle to be the people's car again. Again, I love Volkswagen. Again, I'm very biased. I own a GTI Mark 7, which I love and I'm hoping to keep for a long time. Um, the Humble Mechanic said it. I don't know if you're familiar with the Humble Mechanic and Instagram and YouTube, but he was kind of upset about Volkswagen about the ID bus because of the same reasons that I said today and the time before. The pricing is just ridiculous. But a lot of times we blame the brand or just the dealership sometimes, right? Because we don't understand the situation. But in this case, I did blame the dealership when it was my turn to look for a car for my family, and I was actually looking at. I'm kind of against buying new cars, but I was tempted to buy an ID bus because of what it is, right? I was hoping for this car to be it again, be Volkswagen again, but it's not. It was not, and it was disappointing because my wife was looking forward to finally being able to drive this car. She's a fan of yeah, the buses and also the the first generation Golf. But yeah, it was sad to see, sad to experience. Again, not the fault of the dealership, because the dealership was was given a bad hand basically, and they play what they have. You can blame them as much as you want, but in this case, it was not their fault. It was a combination of the environment, consequences of the current economy, political situations, and bad planning, right? Bad positioning, product positioning, not understanding your target audience, and not understanding the market. And granted, the EV market is it has been a little complex. Nobody would have. Oh well, I'm not gonna say nobody would have thought that the tax credits would have ended, but you kind of have to, right? Because of the current administration, they were not fans of it. But at the same time, there were factors that thought, well, because of who was named into the government back then, you would think, that okay, EV is gonna be a stronger thing now because this person is in the administration, right? I'm talking about Elon Musk because he was in the administration. You would have thought that EV was gonna make an impact in the car market, but it just backfire. Right now, EVs are not a thing anymore, and unfortunate for the people that like EVs or somebody that was looking into having an EV, but it is what it is. I think I took enough of everybody's time. I'm at 37 minutes. I think I'll leave it here. Thank you for your time. I appreciate your time. I'll see you next time.